Draft night is here, and I'm ready to go through what I did in the Locked On Mock Draft. I promise you, you will not be as angry with me this year as you were last year. I'll talk about what was on the table, what wasn't on the table, and what that tells us about the Magic on draft night. Plus, dream scenarios. We'll get to all that on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 26th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it is officially draft day. The Nova Knicks are apparently a thing now. They weren't before, now they are. I don't know. We'll get into the difficulty of making trades for this Orlando Magic team on draft night. I will talk specifically about my strategy in the Locked On Mock Draft. We did not do an ultimate mock draft episode, so there's no audio on this, but I'll go over what my thought process was throughout the draft, who I ended up picking as well, and I'll explain that pick, and a little bit of the trade discussions that I had. So we'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, this great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down and get completed, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. Summer is kind of an empty playground for sports unless you're a big baseball fan. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I would be remiss if I did not also take this time to say that go back and listen to yesterday's episode of Locked On Magic. Finish today's episode first. Definitely do that. But check out yesterday's episode of Locked On Magic. We heard from Jeff Weltman and his perspective on the upcoming draft, as well as from the Locked On Podcast Network on pretty much everyone that the Magic are going to be looking at. We hit like 10, at least 10 guys. I don't remember how many people we hit on. But if you're trying to do a crash course on this draft, yesterday's episode is a really, really good tip. I would highly suggest you listen to it before the draft tonight, which starts at 8 p.m. We'll have coverage of that from the Advent Health Training Center, or I'll be at the Advent Health Training Center. I don't know if we'll record at the Advent Health Training Center, so we might not be from there, but we'll have complete coverage of the first round on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But today I want to focus on kind of the draft mechanically. We're already seeing it happen. Tonight, just as the Minnesota Lynx defeated the New York Liberty to win the WNBA Commissioner's Cup. Don't let Cheryl Reeve have a trophy. She will win more. Jump on the Lynx bandwagon, by the way. The New York Knicks acquired Mikal Bridges for 5 future first-round picks. No picks in this year's draft involved. And it's obviously a huge move. You know, the Knicks now certainly a contender, a much better team after their second round. Honestly, what the Knicks did is the kind of aggressive move you make when you're on the cusp of winning a championship. You mortgage your future. You bring in a player that's going to help you win now. The Knicks aren't going to use draft picks for the foreseeable future. And while they're going to be close to being hard capped and maybe open the door for OG Anunoby to become a gettable free agent after they couldn't agree to a deal with him in the pre-negotiating in the pre-free agency negotiating window, maybe that deal is still forthcoming. The Knicks are now a really dangerous team. They were a really dangerous team before. They are still a really dangerous team. And we talk. I would mention this too, and I think we talked about this last week. The Magic do have to keep up a little bit. The Magic are in this ecosystem now, where the teams around them are going to be aggressively trying to get better to the point where they will make mistakes. And it's not that the Magic should overextend themselves or put themselves at risk of weakening key parts of their team in order to win headlines and get better. The Magic do have to aggressively be pursuing ways to improve their team, just like the Knicks did Tuesday night. I don't think the Magic would ever have been willing to offer 5 first-round picks. I do agree with that. I agree with Jeff Weltman saying we need to be true to our North Star and who we are and our identity as a team. The Magic, if there's a reason why the Magic seem lukewarm on this free agency class, then you can go back and listen to all our cases for and against certain players. It's because no one seems to fit the bill. Nobody seems to check all the boxes the Magic like in draft picks, in players they want to acquire, in players they want to bring into the fold. And so that, to me, that is a fair thing. That is a fair thing. The Magic don't want to overextend themselves. They don't want to put themselves to compromise their identity, their culture for the sake of winning a headline or grabbing a star who may not fit, but is a star player. They don't want to weaken their strength, their defense, for the sake of just adding shooting for the sake of adding shooting. That closes doors to a lot of guys. Does that close the door to Trae Young? Does that close the door to, would that close the door to like a Tyus Jones or D'Angelo Russell in free agency? The Magic, it still seems like, are operating from a point of, we know specifically what we like. We're not willing to make sacrifices, or we're not willing to downgrade our strengths to just get better offense. They're going to, again, I think the central question of the offseason, and again, I don't think I think Anthony Parker expressed this a little bit on the Orlando Magic Pod Squad. I don't think Jeff Weltman would express it in quite this way, but I think the central question for the Magic this offseason is, how much of their identity do they feel like they can sacrifice? What is the breaking point of saying, this guy, he just doesn't want to defend? Can we really bring him in? I think a lot of people would say that that's like Anthony Simons. Like, Anthony Simons has the size to be a good defender. He's never been on a team that asked him to defend. That's the thing. That's like the kind of the hard part. And so as I engage in the Locked On mock draft, and we do trades and we do negotiations, I really found it difficult to find deals that made sense, that checked all the boxes that I know the Magic are trying to check. The size, the versatility, the willingness to defend, the shooting that the Magic need, the needs that the Magic need. I found it really difficult to make trades and kind of make waves with what I'm willing to offer. I kind of found, and I think this has been the case in a lot of the kind of fake trades that we see from like Bleacher Report and from fans, the Magic really only want to offer teams Wendell Carter and Cole Anthony. And honestly, that's really the only players I made available in trades. The market, I think, really wants the Magic to offer Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. Like, if the Magic wanted to get Darius Garland, it would almost certainly cost one of Jalen Suggs or Jonathan Isaac. And I don't think the Magic are willing to spend that. I got into negotiations with the Portland Trailblazers. We had Mike Richmond. I was on Mike Richmond's show to talk about Anthony Simons a few weeks ago. And we kind of used that as our starting point. I tried to swing a deal for Wendell Carter, 2 first-round picks for Anthony Simons and Robert Williams. And ultimately, we kind of had it in place, and we said, let's put it on the back burner. There's no draft picks involved in it. We can revisit it later. Ultimately, he wanted Anthony Black and essentially 3 first-round picks. And I wasn't willing to give up a 3rd first-round pick, because I'm still not convinced Anthony Simons is the guy the Magic want because of that defensive concern. And I wasn't willing to trade Anthony Black in that deal. And I was a little queasy about Robert Williams because of his injury history and all that. But like, that gets to the other part of the problem. I was big on this last year. I'm still big on this. I think a lot of you are probably big on this too. Wendell Carter may not be the answer at center, but he is a fine replacement level player, or he's fine for what the Magic are now. The Magic still need to find a 3rd center that they're comfortable starting, because Wendell Carter is going to miss 15 games every year. And so I could not trade Wendell Carter unless I had a center in place. And frankly, I don't think the Magic are going to beat the Thunder for Isaiah Hartenstein. Maybe the Nets' decision to restart the rebuild and restart like they have by trading Mikal Bridges, maybe that means Nick Claxton is now available and more freely available. And if I am confident that I'm going to sign Nick Claxton, then maybe I'm willing to do some of the deals that I've discussed. But having said that, the trade that I had on the table with the Blazers would severely limit the Magic's cap room. Essentially, that is the big free agent acquisition. The other deal I had on the table, I did not execute because I could not find a third team to get me that center security that I'm looking for. I did talk with the Miami Heat, our good friend Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat, and we did come to a framework of the 18th pick in Wendell Carter for Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is a substantial salary. He's going to make $30+ million. Essentially, for the Heat, that is a salary dump. They're trying to cut salary. They get an extra first-round pick. They get a solid starting center in Wendell Carter to play next to Bam Adebayo. For them, that is we're getting under the cap, we're getting under the tax, so we can pay fewer taxes and have fewer restrictions and all that stuff. They're a second apron team as it stands right now. Ultimately, we couldn't get that done. I did reach out to the Knicks about Mitchell Robinson. Couldn't get anything going there. It's just like trying to find a center that is a better option than Wendell Carter is actually kind of hard. He's not a bad center. He's just not on the floor a lot. And so with that said, I stood pat. No trades, no reason to yell at me this time for saying, oh, you didn't get good value for that player. I just think for the sake of this exercise, it proved to be as difficult to make deals as I thought. I reached out to Locked On Jazz to talk about Colin Sexton. They wanted Jalen Suggs. That was a no-go for me, especially for Colin Sexton. I reached out to the Pelicans for CJ McCollum. They were not interested in Wendell Carter or Cole Anthony. So that was a no-go. It was just hard to swing a significant deal that I feel would make this team better or would upgrade the team in the positions that the Magic need to upgrade. So ultimately, I had to make the pick. And I'll explain who I picked and why I think he's a good fit. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Get yourself ready for the NBA draft and for all the big stories in sports with the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream channel. It's a free channel programmed for you every day to bring you the big stories without the screaming and with the local expert analysis that you can expect from the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So like I said, I found it really difficult to swing trades. And a lot of the mock trades and a lot of the kind of trade speculation that fans have, there's just a lot of stuff that I don't believe. Now, if the Magic are willing to trade Jonathan Isaac, I think that opens up a lot of doors for them to make moves. Obviously, he's got that non-guarantee. He's in the last year of his contract, so it may not be as valuable. But I do think trades are generally going to be pretty difficult for the Magic. And again, I just don't think the Magic are ready to give up future draft capital. I will hawk that 2025 Nuggets pick till the day ends. Like I am really ready to sell that thing. But and 2025 is a pretty good draft by all accounts. Cooper Flag draft. It's just going to be really hard to swing trades. So I ended up making the pick, and I actually ended up making the pick assuming that the Anthony Simons deal was gonna go through. And so I will fully admit that and proffer some other names that I think I would have gone for proffer some other names I would have gone for if I didn't think the Simons trade was going to go through. I picked Jacoby Walter of Baylor. Jacoby Walter, 6'4", 6'5", good size, kind of a swing guard. I don't know if you want him playing too many small forwards. He doesn't check all the boxes of versatility, but essentially to me, Jacoby Walter is the best 3-and-D prospect in this draft. you got better shooters. Reed Shepherd's a better shooter. Dalton Connect's a better shooter. I'd argue Baylor Shireman's a better shooter. But Jacoby Walter, I think, is the best shooter that has that complete package. He's not only going to be able to hit threes, and he was an okay shooter in college, but a lot of that, again, is because of he's on the ball a lot more. He's not going to be on the ball as much in the NBA. I think he can be a solid spot-up shooter. I think he can defend his size and his position really, really well. And he in most mock drafts, he's going above 18. So I think that would be a really solid pick. If you play for Scott Drew at Baylor, you have to defend. That is Baylor's gimmick. They are a defensive team. And, he really gets after people and gets after players. I really do like Jacoby Walter. I will admit he was not the top pick on my board when I drafted, but like I said, I thought I was going to get the Anthony Simons deal done, and so I didn't want to draft another point guard since I was going to be bringing in a point guard. And I also had the notion of, okay, I might be trading this pick, so I might be drafting for someone else. But don't get me wrong, Jacoby Walter is a player that I'm very, very comfortable picking. If he is there at 18, to me, that is a value get. I think he is a better player than the 18th pick in the draft. And I think the way this draft is, the Magic are in a really good spot. I really do like the options that the Magic have at 18. We'll go over some dream scenarios here. But like I said, he wasn't the top guy on my board because I thought I had another deal in place that kind of fell through at the last second. I was on the clock. I had to make my pick. The guy that was on the board that's my top guy was Jared McCain of Duke. I really do like Jared McCain. He does not have the size the Magic like. He's 6'3", not super long. But he is really smart. Like he is not some supreme athlete. I think there's some concern about his first step and his ability to kind of get by players at the NBA level. But he's a 40% three-point shooter in college, excellent free throw shooter, doesn't turn the ball over a lot, will create some assists, knows how to create space against bigger players, which I think is really important. I am a big Jared McCain fan. I really do like him a lot. He was available in this mock draft. He didn't go till, where'd he go? There he is, 25. So he didn't go till the Knicks at 25. He kind of bounces around in all the mock drafts. I think he would be a really solid pick. Do the Magic need another point guard? Point guard, positions are all relative. It's about, being able to have guys who can do multiple things. So you have, I think you can really focus on getting a 3-and-D wing here. Now, this is important to note. Free agency does play a role, I think, here in who you're going to draft. The Magic should have some idea of who they're going to target in free agency. And like I've said, I do think the Magic should be going after kind of a mid-level wing. Like I like the Gary Trent Jr. idea. I like the Buddy Hield idea. I like a Kelly Oubre idea for got backup 3, the backup 2-3, kind of the Joe Ingles role, if you will. Tristan da Silva was off the board at this point, I believe. Let me double check that. He went 17. I'm not a big Johnny Furphy fan. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. I am not a big Johnny Furphy fan. I'm not a believer in the shot. And so that ultimately is why I passed on him. I know a lot of Magic people love Bub Carrington. I like him too. I'm not as much a believer in his shot as other people are. I think that he's got good size and probably fits the size the Magic like better. So I would probably venture to guess that they would pick him over Jared McCain. But I just like McCain shooting. Like McCain shooting, I think he plays with a ton of poise. I think that's a really big thing. Carrington, I think, may be able to get to the basket a little bit better, but that's honestly not what I'm looking for in that role. Essentially this player is going to be playing alongside Anthony Black. And so, I like McCain's versatility a little bit more. Some of the other options that I was considering, I did consider Kyle Filipowski a little bit. I'm not super high on him at the end of the day. So there are options here. And I think that's the most important thing to realize is that the Magic do have choices here. Again, I'm doing my mock as I'm recording this. I'm still writing my final mock draft for Orlando Magic Daily. And I always find myself I will admit this bias. I always find myself when I do mock drafts of these are the guys I like for the Magic. So of course other teams will like them too. And I think the Magic are looking for a lot of the same things a lot of other teams are looking for. So I overdraft Tristan da Silva. I overdraft someone like Jared McCain or even Jacoby Walter. But these are good players. And if they're there at 18, I think the Magic will be doing a good job. There is one dream scenario, though. One scenario that I think might be a little controversial, but if this happens, I think the Magic take it and run with it. Exhibit some patience and do it. We'll talk about the dream scenario that is possible for the Orlando Magic and maybe some other dream picks that the Magic can hope for. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I love sports. We all love sports. We're listening to a sports podcast, but summer is the desert. Not just because we'll be heading to Vegas here in a couple weeks, but summer is a desert for sports. We get fewer games and fewer things going on. Sure, we love the WNBA, but without the other sports going on at the same time, it just feels empty. There's just not enough WNBA games in a season. Expand the WNBA, people. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you are in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to start making the most out of your summer today. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. There is one scenario that I have seen in mock drafts happen. As I've been going through my mock draft, I see this pathway for it to happen. And honestly, I might consider trading up to make sure it happens. I don't know quite how I feel about this guy because I didn't think it was possible for him to be available. But there is definitely a chance, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but there's definitely a chance Nikola Topic will be available at 18. Nikola Topic has spent most of the season as a top 5 prospect, if not a surefire top 10 prospect. But he has a partially torn ACL that is likely going to keep him out for the majority of the upcoming season. The team that drafts him is going to need to have the patience to wait a year on him. But Topic is probably the top point guard in this draft class. He's 6'6", so big guard who has great basketball IQ, great feel, great pace, understands how to work his way around the court, does not rely a ton on his athleticism, which is good coming off an ACL injury, and is able to just whip passes at will. His shooting is suspect, needs to improve, and as always, young players have to get better with their decision-making and reduce their turnovers. But Nikola Topic is one of the best prospects in this draft. And again, this is not a particularly strong draft class, but to have a guy who is a top 5 prospect for so long, for much of the season, and is only falling because of an injury, to me, that is the sort of risk that Denver took with Michael Porter Jr. And look how that paid off for them. Look how much that helped them. And Topic is probably a much better team player than Porter. At the end of the day, this is what the Magic's ideal is. And we talked about this last year on draft night. I remember my big takeaway from draft night is like, the Magic surprised everyone by taking Anthony Black. The Magic surprised everyone by taking Jet Howard over Jordan Hawkins and Grady Dick. And at the end of the day, it was just like, whether you agree with the picks or not, whether you think they're the right picks or not, it was, of course, they took those players. They're big. They're bigger than their comparables in the draft. They do things for their position that other players don't. Jordan Hawkins was too small. Grady Dick was too small. Anthony Black is a 6'6" point guard. Or that's essentially what he's been billed as. We haven't seen the point guard part as much as we would like, perhaps. This is what the Magic do. And so at the end of the day, the Magic are going to stick to their principles. We could talk about the skills that we like about all these players, but the Magic want the skills and the size. It's why Tristan da Silva feels like a perfect pick. It's why Johnny Furphy is considered a really high pick for the Magic. It's why they would love if Devin Carter fell to them. He's not going to. It's why Bub Carrington is an interesting prospect. It's why Keyshawn George from Miami, sharpshooter, 6'8", really fluid player for wing, is a potential player. That's why the Magic might have interest in Isaiah Collier. We haven't talked about Isaiah Collier a lot because he just does not shoot. He's a terrible shooter. But Isaiah Collier is another big point guard. Not Nikola Topic big, but big. It's why we talk about Pacome Daddier, and why, he's not mocked in the first round on a lot of mock drafts, but he's a Magic player. It's why we'll talk about Oso Ighodaro in the second round when we get to the second round at the end of tomorrow's episode. It's why it's why maybe we're not as high on Deron Holmes, even though I really like him, because he's an undersized big. It's why Kel'el Ware is absolutely an option for the Magic at 18. The Magic are going to stick to their principles. They're going to stick to the kind of things that we know they like. For better or for worse, this is how the Magic operate. And they're not going to stop operating that way just because they've won a few more games. At the end of the day, the Magic trust their player development. They will take a project because they know they have the G League and they're comfortable using the G League and Dylan Murphy's program to develop players. The Magic are talking Jet Howard up. I'm really excited to see him in Summer League. I want to see what he looks like and see if he's made the progress that the Magic think he's made. I want him to look like he is a second-year player. I don't want him to look like a rookie. They're talking him up big. I don't think they would do that if they didn't believe in what they were doing. At the end of the day, when you're looking at the draft, you're believing in your draft process. You're believing in your developmental process. And Nikola Topic, if he is there at 18, you'll wait a year for him. Because waiting a year could net some big results. Because that is a talented player. And we've talked about this in terms of trades and free agency. The Magic have to be willing to think big in the draft too. They still have to be willing to take a big swing when they have faith in something. If there's a player that they believe in wholeheartedly, go get him. The Magic aren't old enough or experienced enough to pass on a talented player. Now, who that trade up player might be, I don't know. Would they trade up for Dalton Connect? Maybe. Would they trade, Tristan De Silva, would they trade up for him? Maybe. I don't think they do it for Cody Williams. Devin Carter, I don't think they do it for. There's not a lot of players in this year's draft that I would say would start for the Magic next year. Let's put it that way. I don't think Reed Shepherd would. Risache probably wouldn't. Klingon might. I don't think he's better than Wendell Carter today. So the Magic are doing this balancing act. And when you're doing this balancing act, you start with who you are. And that's going to be the message for free agency. That's going to be the message for trades. That's going to be the message for this. Start with who you are. You are a long, athletic, positionally versatile defensive team. Go find those players. If it's Topic, great. If he falls to you, great. If it's Kel'el Ware with his rim protection and his ability to rebound, great. If it's Tristan De Silva with his do-everything versatility, great. If it's Keyshawn George with his size and potential as a shooter, great. If it's Jared McCain with his shooting, even though he doesn't have the size you like, great. If it's Bub Carrington because he does have the size that you like, great. This is the time to double down on who you are, especially because it works. The Magic won 47 games last year. They went to Game 7 of the first round in their first playoff series. This is the time to believe in what you are building. The Magic absolutely have that belief as we get ready for the NBA draft. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts. Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Fun on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. Definitely follow OMagicDaily on Twitter. During the draft, I'll have live updates from the Advent Health Training Center, and we'll, of course, recap all the action from the first round of the NBA draft on Locked On Magic tomorrow. Be sure also to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub for even more Orlando Magic content. Again, patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Be sure also to subscribe to our YouTube page as well. We'll be having instant reactions from the Locked On Podcast Network, as well as from me from the Advent Health Training Center. So in addition to following me on my socials, definitely follow on YouTube, definitely subscribe on YouTube. It helps us out anyway, even if you're just an audio listener. But if you want instant reaction from draft night, that is the place to be. Again, check it out. YouTube, just search for Locked On Magic. Happy draft night, everybody. It's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a really exciting night. Hopefully nothing happened. I don't have my phone with me here. Hopefully nothing happened while I'm recording this. If it did, I will jump back on here and talk about it. But until next time, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again for another episode of Locked On Magic. And congrats to the Minnesota Lynx, WNBA Commissioner's Cup champions. Told you, don't let Cheryl Reeve win one. She'll keep on winning. See you next time, everybody.